When God chooses someone for you, it doesn't come wrapped in anxiety or confusion. It doesn't make your heart race in fear or force you to shrink, just to stay connected. Instead, it brings a peace that doesn't make sense in the natural. It's the kind of stillness your soul has been craving all along, the kind that doesn't require pretending or performing or constantly checking if you're enough in their eyes. There's no emotional chase, no spiritual exhaustion, no questions about whether they're serious or temporary. It just feels grounded and real, like you've stepped into something that was always meant to be. Your heart finally exhales, because it's not trying to fight for a place that's already yours. You begin to realize that the presence of peace is proof of God's fingerprints, because He is not the author of confusion when it's Him orchestrating the bond. It doesn't rush you or push you beyond your readiness. It flows at the rhythm of grace, and every moment together becomes a reminder that you don't have to force what's already favored. They don't try to change you into who they want you to be. Instead, they see you as God shaped you to be, and it becomes easier to rest instead of chase, to breathe instead of beg, and to grow instead of worry. You don't just feel loved, you feel safe. You don't just feel chosen, you feel covered, because when God writes the story, He doesn't just send you someone to love, He sends someone who reminds you what peace was always supposed to feel like. There are moments in life when you meet someone and something inside you responds before logic has time to speak, before your mind can ask questions or your fears can interfere. Your spirit stands up and whispers, "I know them," not because you've seen them before, but because God wrote their presence into the pages of your destiny long before either of you arrived at this intersection. Your soul remembers what your memory cannot, and in their presence, you don't feel like a stranger. You feel like something old and sacred has been restored. It's not infatuation, it's identification, not butterflies, but alignment. Like two pieces finally clicking after years of searching for where they belong, and you try to explain it, but words fall short because it's not emotional noise, it's spiritual recognition. A kind of peace that wraps around you when they speak, a kind of stillness that quiets your inner chaos. And you don't need to force a connection, because the connection already exists. Your spirit has met theirs in prayers you forgot, you prayed in dreams you never fully understood, and when it happens, you don't feel like you're falling in love. You feel like you're remembering it, like you've arrived at a place that always had your name on it, and every interaction, every moment feels like confirmation, not confusion. It's not that your mind doesn't matter, it's that your spirit got there first, because when God ordains someone for you, He doesn't send them to impress your eyes first. He sends them to echo something deep within you, something holy, something eternal, something home. When God brings someone into your life, it's not because you're broken and in need of fixing. It's not because you're half and they're the other half. It's because you've walked through fire and healing and surrender long enough to finally carry wholeness. And when two whole souls meet, they don't come to complete, they come to align. And that alignment feels like divine rhythm, like two rivers flowing into one direction, not colliding but combining, not competing but complementing. And suddenly you realize that love is not about fixing someone or being fixed. It's about flowing in the same direction, under the same purpose, with the same God at the center. And they don't try to fill your gaps, because they honor the way God has already filled them. They don't try to change your path, they walk beside it with peace and unity. And you don't feel lost in their presence. You feel supported, celebrated, uplifted, because they see the calling on your life not as a threat, but as something sacred, and they carry theirs with the same reverence. And together, it's not chaos, it's clarity. Not confusion, but confirmation. Not pressure, but partnership. Because real, God-ordained alignment doesn't create dependence, it creates depth and freedom. And when you experience this kind of alignment, your prayers shift from "God, please fix me," to "God, thank you for someone who walks with me." And that is where heaven touches earth. Not when someone completes your identity, but when someone reflects the God who gave it to you. There comes a moment when you speak with someone, and it doesn't feel like small talk or surface level exchange. It feels like something ancient is awakening inside. You like your spirit is finally being spoken to, not just your ears, and every word carries weight, not in how loud it is, but in how deeply it lands, and you realize this isn't just about sharing thoughts. It's about exchanging presence. It's about hearts meeting in the sacred in-between, where time slows down and silence feels full, and every conversation isn't just emotional. It's eternal, because something in their voice echoes prayers you didn't even say out loud, and when you speak, it's not to impress, it's to reveal, and still you feel safe, you feel seen, you feel spiritual. And this is how God moves when He pairs two souls, not just for love, but for purpose. The dialogue isn't draining, it's healing. It doesn't take from you, it restores what the world stripped away, and even the pauses feel holy, like God is in the quiet, weaving something eternal between the spaces of your words. And you can talk for hours, or sit in silence, and yet walk away, feeling like you've worshipped, because when it's from God, conversation becomes connection, and connection becomes confirmation that this is not just a person. It's a piece of your assignment, and with them your soul doesn't just speak, it settles, and in that settling, there is peace, clarity, trust, and the deep, unspoken knowing that heaven has brought this together, not to entertain your emotions, but to echo eternity inside your soul. When God sends someone into your life, they don't distract you from Him, they lead you closer without even trying, not by preaching at you or forcing you into religion, but simply by the way they live, the way they love, the way they pray, and you start to notice that when you're around them, your hunger for God increases, your desire for purity grows, your prayers get deeper, and your spirit starts reaching for heaven, not because of pressure, but because of presence. And you realize that this person isn't your destination. They're a reflection of God's love for you. They are a reminder of the promises He's spoken over you. And when they speak life, you hear God's echo. When they comfort you, it feels like divine peace. And when they walk with you, it feels like you're walking in purpose. And you don't worship them, you worship more because of them. Because their existence stirs something holy in you, a deeper pursuit, a revived faith, a gentler spirit, and you begin to see God in the little things, in the way they forgive, in the way they endure, in the way they hold you in silence and pray in secret. And suddenly you understand that this was never just about romance. It was always about realignment. This was never about being fulfilled by them, but being awakened by the way they reflect God's heart. And somehow in their love you taste God's grace, in their encouragement you hear His whisper, and in their presence you find yourself falling more in love with the one who wrote this story long before you ever imagined it. There are moments when words become unnecessary, when presence speaks louder than phrases, and when someone is truly aligned with your spirit. You begin to feel the beauty of silence, not as emptiness, but as connection, and you realize that peace is not found in constant conversation, but in quiet unity. And this person doesn't need to ask what's wrong, they just know they need to fix you with sentences. They heal you with stillness, and you find yourself sitting beside them saying nothing, yet feeling everything, because their spirit hears you even when your lips don't move, and your heart feels seen even when your eyes say nothing. And you understand that silence isn't the absence of love, it's the evidence of depth. Because when God puts someone in your life who carries your rhythm, you won't always need to explain. You'll simply be, and in that being there's rest in that pause, there's presence in that stillness, there's safety. And you'll learn that the loudest love is not the one that shouts from rooftops, but the one that holds your hand when words fail and doesn't let go. And even in the storm, their silence is like shelter, because they don't run from your quietness, they sit in it with you. And somehow through it all, God speaks and reminds you that when it's from Him there will always be understanding, even in silence, even in the spaces between thoughts, even in the moments where no one else would stay. They remain, and their silence is not void, it's full, it's strong, it's sacred. And it says, I'm here, and I hear you, without saying a single word. There comes a moment when the confusion clears and your heart finally sees the pattern, not with bitterness, but with revelation. Because when God sends the right person into your life, their presence becomes the explanation for all the pain you've endured, the prayers you thought went unanswered, the nights you cried wondering what was wrong with you, and now you know it was never. Rejection, it was redirection. It wasn't that you were unlovable, it was that God was protecting you from what would have distracted you, delayed you, or even destroyed you. And now with this person, there's a quiet knowing that this is different, not because it's perfect, but because it's purpose-filled. And you realize that all those closed doors weren't failures, they were foundations. All those breakups weren't breakdowns, they were breakthroughs, to prepare your heart to recognize what's real. And when you look back at almost every could have been, every forced connection, you don't feel regret, you feel gratitude, because if they would have stayed, you would have settled, and if they would have worked out, you wouldn't have found what was worth waiting for. And now, with the right one, you understand love was never meant to be confusing or chaotic. It was meant to feel like peace. It was meant to point you back to God. And this time, you're not questioning your worth or chasing affection. You're simply receiving what was already written for you. And in that realization comes healing, because sometimes the blessing isn't what you gain, but what God removed so you could be ready to receive. Something holy, something whole, something heaven sent. And now you understand why it never worked with anyone else, because it was never supposed to.